Hi everyone, welcome you all. This is Pavan. So from today's session onwards, we are going to see how we can work with Apache POI. And first of all, let us try to understand what is Apache POI and where exactly we use it and what is the importance of this in automation. So first let us start with what is Apache POI. So Apache POI is an API provided by Apache Foundation, which is a collection of different Java libraries. And these libraries gives the facility to read, write, and manipulate different Microsoft files such as Excel, PowerPoint, and MS Word files. And Apache POI is basically designed as an API which contains a number of Java libraries. And we use it whenever you want to work with Microsoft documents. So for example, I want to work with Excel file. Let's say I want to create an Excel file. I want to create multiple sheets. I want to write some data in the Excel. Or similarly, I want to read some data from Excel. Right? So these kind of operations, if you want to perform through Java, so we use Apache POI package, and which is basically an API and which is implemented by Apache Foundation. And this is completely open source and we can just download and do configuration and start using it. Right. So what is the importance of this Apache POI, especially in automation? So in automation, we have something called data-driven testing. So what is data-driven testing means? So we'll run the test case or we'll execute the test case with multiple sets of data. And where exactly we specify the data? So data will be specified in the some third-party files, like it can be text files or it can be CSV files or it can be Excel files. Sometimes we can take the data from the databases. But among all these sources, Excel file will play very, very important roles. Most of the times we use Excel as a data source where we can put all the data, we prepare all the test data, and we use the test data in our application. So to do all these things, we need to make use of Apache POI. And by default, Selenium doesn't support Excel file. We don't have such classes or methods in Selenium because it is only meant for web testing. But if you still want to automate or if you want to do some kind of data-driven testing, so we need to work with the Excel file. So to achieve this, we use Apache POI. So this is a third-party API which is provided by Apache Foundation and which we can integrate with our Selenium. Then we can achieve data-driven testing. So now we'll see what is Apache POI. So what it contains, what are the different classes or interfaces provided inside. So Apache POI is having mainly 4 interfaces, especially when you're working with Excel file. These are the 4 interfaces we use: workbook interface, sheet interface, a row, and cell. So when I take in any Excel file, right? So what Excel contains are mainly 4 components. Excel file contains a workbook. The workbook contains a multiple sheets. Every sheet contains a multiple rows, and each row contains a multiple cells. So this is the hierarchy of the Excel. So for each component in the Excel, they have created a separate interfaces. Like workbook is one interface, sheet is another interface, row is another interface, cell is another interface. And these interfaces have implemented by using different classes. Suppose if you are working with Microsoft Excel before 97 version, and in that time the file extension will be .xls. So if you have an Excel file with this extension, you have to use these classes: HSSF workbook, HSSF sheet, HSSF row, HSSF cell. So these are the different classes which I have implemented, which will support only Microsoft till 97. And the newer versions of Microsoft Excels, we have a different type of extension, that is XLSEX. And if your Excel file is having this extension XLSEX, then you have to use these classes. So the same interfaces have implemented by using different classes like XSSF workbook, XSSF sheet, XSSF row, and XSSF cell. So these are the different classes which have implemented these interfaces. Right? So these are the interfaces and classes which are available in Apache POI. Now each class is representing one component in Excel. So for example, in Excel file, we have a workbook. So XSF workbook is a class which is representing workbook, and XSSF sheet, which is a class which is representing the sheet in a workbook. Then XSF row, which is another class which is representing the row in a sheet. Similarly, we also have XSF cell. This is representing a cell in the particular row. So these are different classes which are implemented these interfaces. Now we'll see practically how we can use these classes and to work with the Excel file. Okay, so most of the times, so what are the different type of operations we can do in Excel? So we have some data in Excel and we can read the data from Excel. And sometimes we can create our own Excel file and we can create some data in the Excel. And sometimes we do some validations on the rows and columns. And sometimes we'll apply the some styles, like we'll update some cells with color, and we will increase the font, decrease the font, do some calculation. So these are the common operations we do on Excel, right? Excel sheet. So all these things we can do by using Apache POI. Now we'll see the basic operations what we can do, which is very helpful in our automation. Now let us start with this. So normally when I start doing some operations in Excel, the first operation which I'm going to show you is reading data from Excel. So I'll maintain one Excel file and I specify some data in it. Then I'll show you how we can read the data from Excel using Apache POI. Now let's go to Eclipse, and here I'm going to create a new project. So let's go to file, new Java project I'm creating, and I'll name it as Apache POI and then finish. So now I created a new Java project in my Eclipse. So now it is creating a new project. So once you created your project, this is simple Java project. Now we need to work with Apache POI. So for that, we need to download the libraries. So from where we can download the libraries is we need to go to official website. If I just go to Apache POI, and this is a official website, Apache POI. And if I just look at this page, you can find something called, there are multiple links are there, and home Java docs. If I just click on the Java docs, so they will provide the documentation. And if I just go to the download link, and you can see here available downloads, and in this section you can find the latest stable release is Apache POI 4.1.2. so this is a latest official version. You can directly click on this link, or if you just come down to binary distribution, you can find the one more zip file. You can download from anywhere. So let me just click on this link. And once you click on this link, which will start downloading Apache POI. So when I click on this, which will start downloading. Yeah, now it is go to this section actually. So when I click on this zip file, which will start downloading the Apache POI. So now it is again navigating to the next page. So let's click on the either this one or this one of the link. So once you click on this, which will download a zip file now, which contains a number of jar files, and jar file contains so many libraries and classes and methods. So we have to use those classes and methods to work with the Excel file. So let me open this. Now I got the zip file. So once you got the zip file, just extract this. So once you extracted this, which contains all the binary files. So let it extract. Okay, so now I have extracted my zip file into a folder. So if I just open this folder, you can see one more folder, Py 4.1.2, which is the latest version. Now open this, you can find multiple jar files, and along with them in the OXML-lib, you can see few more jar files. Then again inside the lib folder, you can see few more jar files. So we need to add all the jar files to your Java project to get all the libraries. So meanwhile, what I can do is I'll just copy the folder as it is. I can put my common place where I will maintain all the drivers. So go to my driver folder. So I can just create one more driver folder here, and I'll keep all the drivers in one place. So if I just look at here, I copied already that folder. So POI bin 4.1.2, which contains all the jar files. Now we need to associate these jar files to your Java project. Now go to Eclipse. Now right click on your project, whatever you created, go to properties, and go to Java build path. And here we have to add external jars and go to Apache POI. So here we need to add all the jars. So first we need to add these jars, open, and then go to add external jars one more time, go to OXML and select these jar files. One more time, add external jars, go back, go to lib folders, select all of them and say open. So now we have added all the jar files to your Java project and then say apply and close. Now my project setup is ready with Apache POI. So if you have a normal Java project, you can manually download the jar files, then attach those jar files in the Java build path. Suppose if you are creating Maven project, then you need to add dependencies in the pom.xml. So in those cases, you can get the dependencies from Maven repository. So if I just go to mavenrepository.com and here search for Apache POI. And when you search for Apache POI, let me just give you proper syntax, Apache POI. Right, so now you can see multiple packages are there. So this is the one package, POI OXML and only POI. So these are the two things which we need to add in the pom.xml. So once you click on this, you will get one dependency. So this is our latest version 4.1.2, and you need to add this dependency in the pom.xml if you are using Maven project. This is the one dependency, and there is one more dependency you need to add called only POI, Apache POI. So if I just click on this, again go to the same version. Now we need to add this is also. So these are two dependencies which you need to add if you are creating a Maven project. Okay. All right. So now we have done with project setup. So now I'll show you the first operation in the Excel, that is how to read the data from Excel. Okay. So how to read the data from Excel. So for that, what I can do is I'll just create one Excel which contains some data. Then I'll show you how many ways we can read the data from Excel by using Apache POI. So inside our project itself, I'm just creating a new folder and I'll name it as data files, and all Excel files I'll create inside the folder. So inside the folder, okay, so I'm just going to have one file. So I already have some data file. Let's say I have countries Excel file. So I'm just putting here. So this is my countries.xls file. So let me open and show you. So once you open this Excel file, which contains some data, so it is opening inside the Eclipse. I don't want to open inside the Eclipse. So what I will do is I can just do some settings. Just hold on. So instead of directly open, what you can do is just right click open with, instead of default editor, I can just say system editor. Then it will open the new Excel file. So this is Excel. I have some data in it. If I just look at here, I have some countries and I have some capitals and then population. So now I want to read this data and I want to print this data in my console window. So how we can read it. So now we'll see that. So this is my Excel file which I'm going to read, and my Excel file name is countries.xlsx, and name of the sheet is sheet 1. I have it 3 columns: country, capital and population. Now let us see one by one. So step by step how we can achieve it. So let's go to SRC and I'm creating my own package. I say Excel operations. Let's say finish. Now let me just create a new class, a new Java class. I'll name it as reading Excel. Let's take a main method. Okay, so now we'll do step by step how we can read the data from Excel file. So there are many ways are there. I'll show you mainly two different ways. So we can use a for loop method which will read the data from Excel, and we also can use iterator method. So both approaches I'll show you. So before that, first of all, we need to first get the location of the file. So let's create one variable called string. Say Excel file path. I'm just creating a one variable, Excel file path equal to, and where exactly my file is present. So my file is currently available in my project itself. In my project data files, inside the data files folder, my file is present. So dot slash slash is representing your current project location. Inside this, I have a folder called data files. Inside this, you have a Excel file which is countries.xls. So I'm just putting the name of the file. So this is the location of the Excel file. Okay. Now, first thing is we already have this file. So just we need to read the data. So first we need to open this particular file by using file input stream. So we need to create a stream. Through that stream, we can read the data. Okay. So here we have to use input stream, file input stream class, which will create a stream to this file and we can read the data. So when I open the file in the reading mode, we use file input stream class. So let me open file input. Let me write file input stream and I'll name it as input stream equal to new file input stream, new file input stream. So for which file we have to open the stream? So this particular file. So that we have to pass as an argument. So this will we need to import file input stream from java.io and this will throw some exception, just add. So now I open the file in the stream mode. So now I need to get the workbook from the file. Then I need to get the sheet. Then I need to get the rows. And then finally you can read the data from the cells. Now this is step-by-step activities. So let me do that. So first we created file path and then we connected the stream to that file. So input stream is representing the file and then we need to get the workbook from this file. So by using input stream. So let's take this. Let's create a workbook object. We have a class in Apache POI that is XSSF workbook. So this is a class which is available. So for that, I'm just creating one object variable. Let's say workbook. Now I want to get the workbook from this file and refer that workbook by using this variable. So for that, what you can do is we have to create workbook XSF workbook object as a new XSSF workbook. And inside this, we have a constructor. That constructor will take the file path input stream. So we need to pass it. So what this statement will do is first we get the location of the file and we refer that file by using file input stream so that we are going to open the file in the reading mode. Then we get the workbook from the file. So XSF workbook I have to import from Apache POI or Apache POI. So if I just look at here, XSF workbook. Okay, this is the exact class name. Now import it. So we have to import this from org apache.poi.xssf.user model. This is a package and this is the class we have imported. So all the classes like XSF workbook, XSF worksheet, row, XSF row, XSF cell, all the classes are present in the same package. So instead of specifying each and every class, I say star. And then we need to add this exception. So from that file, we open the stream and we got the workbook from the file. So once we get the workbook, from that workbook, we have to get the sheet. So workbook dot, there is a method called get sheet, workbook dot get sheet. So this particular method will get the sheet. So we have two methods are available. So when I say get sheet, we have to specify the name of the sheet and this will return the sheet object. So we have to create XSS of sheet as a sheet equal to, and this is again from Apache POI. So from the workbook, I extracted the sheet and referring that sheet with the object. So if you still want to, if you want to pass an index, we have one more method. That is, for example, you can write the same statement like this. Instead of get sheet method, you can use get sheet at. So in that case, we have to pass index number. So index is always start from 0. So either you can use the sheet name or you can use index name. So now we got the sheet from the workbook. So once we get the sheet, now the sheet contains the rows as well as cells. Now we have to read them. So first method I'm going to show you is using for loop. Okay, using for loop, how we can read the data from the sheet, all the rows and columns. So to do that, we need to find out how many rows we have, how many columns we have in the Excel sheet. So that is a prerequisite. So let me take this sheet dot. There is a method called get last row number, and this will return the last row number that is exactly equal to number of rows. So I'm storing this value in one more variable called int rows. And similarly, I want to find out the cells, number of cells in the particular row. So that is representing the columns. So for that, what I can do is I'll use sheet dot get row. So whatever the object we created for sheet dot, there is a method called get row, and this method will get the row from the sheet. So which row you want to get? Let us give some number. Let's say I'll give 1. So first row, and inside that row I want to find how many cells we have. So I'll use one method called get last cell num. So that is exactly equal to number of columns in that particular row, and I'll store that value in one more variable. Okay, so now I got the number of rows and number of columns in Excel. So accordingly, we have to write two different loop statements which will read the data from the Excel. So let me write one for loop. This is one for loop and this another for loop. And one for loop is representing the rows and one other for loop is representing the columns. Now, outer for loop is representing the row. So where exactly we have to start? So int r, I'm starting from 0 row. And how many times we have to repeat this depends upon the number of rows. And then increment r value. Every time I need to increment the row value. So once you start this loop, before starting the inner loop, because inner loop is representing the cells in Excel or in sheet. So before reading the cells by using inner for loop, we have to get the row from the sheet. So we have to get the first row from the sheet. In that row, from that row, we have to read all the cells. After completion of all the cells in the first row, then again we need to go up and get another row and again read all the cells. So similarly, for each row, the inner for loop will execute multiple times, which will read the data from the cells. So before starting inner for loop, we have to get the row from the sheet. So first row we have to get. So how to get the row is same method. So use a sheet object dot get row, and inside the get row, we have to pass a row number, that is R. Now this will return the row. So this particular method, sheet dot get row method, will return the row object. So when it returns the row object, that means we have to store that row object in a variable. Now the type of this variable is XSS F row object. So now I got the first row into this variable. Now this variable is representing the first row, and from that particular row, I want to read all the cells. Now come to inner for loop, and here I'll start from 0 again, and C less than how many times we have to repeat? Again, number of columns, and then C++. So here we got the row anyway. So from this row, we have to extract all the cells. Take this row object dot, there is a method called get cell, and this particular method will return the particular cell from the row, because one row can have multiple cells. So this method will return the cell. So which cell it will return? C. So whatever the C value we are maintaining for cell number I'm passing here. So row dot get cell of C. So this method will return the cell object, and we can store that cell object in a variable, and the type of this variable is XSSF cell object variable, right? So you can just look at here all the classes we have used so far. So XSSF workbook, XSSF sheet, and then we have seen XSSF row and XSSF cell. So all four classes we have used. So XSSF workbook is representing the workbook, sheet representing the sheet, XSSF your row representing the row object, XSSF cell representing the cell object. So here we just get the cell object. From that cell object, we have to get the data. So how to extract the data from the cell object? So before extracting the data from the cell object, we have to find out what kind of data we have in that. That's most important. So if you have all the data like string format, we can use a method called toString. But if you have a multiple type of data, if I just look at this, our Excel file, I'm opening this Excel file. So you can just look at this. I have a different type of data. So the countries or strings, capital or strings, population is number, different type of data I have. You may have a Boolean also, right? So it depends upon the type of data, we have to read the cell. So for that, we need to find out what is the type of the cell. So how to know type of the cell here is, I can simply say cell dot get cell type, cell dot get cell type. So this particular method, cell type. So this method will return the type of the cell. So normally what is the type of the cell? The type of the cell can be string, or it can be numeric, it can be boolean, or it can be formula, or whatever. So it depends upon the data, the type will be automatically assigned to the cell. So once you get the cell object here, I want to check the type of the cell, and based on the type, I will read the data. If it is a string type, I'll use get string cell value method. If it is a number type, then I'll use get a numeric cell value method. So depends upon the type of the cell, we use particular method. So here I have a multiple conditions so that I can put in the switch case statement. So after getting this cell, immediately what I'll do is this statement I'll put in the switch statement. So I can create one switch, cell dot get type I'm taking, and if the cell dot get type, right, so equal to case, let's say if it is a string, if the cell dot get type is a string, then I have one method called system.out.println. I can use one method called cell object dot get string cell value, get string cell value. So this method exactly we use if the type of the column is, or type of the cell is string. Suppose if the type of the cell is number, so as soon as we have done this, we can break, we can come out from switch. And suppose if the type of the cell is a numeric, okay, numeric, and then we have to say system.out.println, and from the cell object we have to extract the value by using get a numeric cell value and then break. Okay, similarly, suppose if the cell value is cell type is boolean, when I say cell type is a boolean, in that case we say system.out.println cell dot get boolean cell value. So this is how we need to use proper method while reading the data from Excel. Depends upon the type of the cell, we have to you choose the proper method, get string cell value, get a numeric cell value, get boolean cell value. So this is a switch command, and this will read the data. Okay, so now let me repeat this loop once again. So the outer loop is representing the rows in a Excel, and inner loop is representing the cells in each row. So first we need to get the row by using sheet.getRow method. We pass the row index and we got the row here. Let us say currently this is my 0 row. Now this inner loop will repeat multiple times to get multiple cells from this particular row, because row contains multiple cells. So on this particular row, this loop will read all the cells, right? So now inner for loop is representing the cells, and here from that particular row object, I'm extracting the cell by passing the index number, and it will return the cell object. And I'm checking whether the cell object or cell type is string or numeric or boolean. So if the cell type is string, then I'm using get string cell value. If the cell type is a numeric, then I'm using get numeric cell value. If the get cell type is boolean, then I'm using get boolean cell value. So depends upon the type of the cell, we have to use proper method. Done. So after completion of the inner for loop, before going to outer for loop, I just use one sysout statement so that all the rows will be printed in the next lines. Then put the semicolon. That's it. So this is a one way we can read the data from Excel. So by using for loops. Now let me just execute this and I will see how it is going to work. So we already have an Excel file in the same project. Under data files, my Excel file is present. So now let us try to execute. Run as Java application. Okay, now you can see here country, capital, population. This is basically header part. This is a one record, second row, and this is a third row, and so on. So all the rows we got it, but I want to ln this exactly in the tabular format, right? So what I can do is instead of print ln, here I'll remove ln and say only print, and then execute. So now we got exactly tabular format, country, capital, population, and all the values of combined. You can just look at here. This is a country, capital, and the population. So I want to give some space, or I want to give some slash between those values. And what we can do is here, after completion of this switch case, after completion of this switch, okay, and here I will print something like slash. Okay, so then it will just add this divider between the values, just for formatting purpose. Now when I run as a Java application, now exactly you will see the data. So again, it is printed multiple lines. So this is just a print, not ln, print ln. It's just a print. All right, so now exactly you can get the data. So this is header part, and rest of the data we got it from Excel. So this is how we need to just read the data from Excel by using loop statements. Now I'll show you one more way to read the data from Excel, and this time I'm going to use iterator approach or iterator method. Now we'll see that. I'll comment this code till here, and till here I'm commenting this code. Now I'll show you how we can work with iterator, how to read the data from Excel using iterator. And this is a most popular approach most of the people will use, because this is little simpler than this one, because we don't need to count rows and columns and all those things. Now we'll see how we can read the data from the same Excel by using iterator method. So as usual, first we need to get the path of the Excel, and we open the file by using file input stream. Then we have to get the workbook, we have to get the sheet. Till here everything is same. So once we get the sheet, we have to read all the rows and columns. So for that, I'm going to create something called iterator method. So we already sheet object is created. So in the sheet object, we have a method called iterator. So what this method exactly will do is, which will return all the rows, and we can iterate those rows, and I can store them in a variable called, it will return some iterator object. So I say iterator is my variable, and the type of the variable should be iterator, and then import this iterator from java.util package. So now by using this iterator, I can repeat all the rows and cells. Now I'll show you how we can do this. So now I'll write one while loop. In the while loop itself, I'll verify iterator is having another record or not. Has a next method, will check that particular object is there or not. In the iterator first object has a next, yes. If it is a yes, the condition is true. And then it will come to while loop, and here from the iterator, we have to capture the value. We have to capture the value. So in iterator, we have all the data, but we need to capture each individual data one by one. So from the iterator, the next method will return the data, means it will return the row, because we have all the rows in Excel sheet. So in the sheet we created iterator. So iterator contains all the rows along with the cells. Now what this command will do is, this command will return the first row, and I'll store that in a variable. Okay, so I'll create one variable called a row. Now when I create a row, what type of object it should be? The variable should be referred with XSSF row class object, and we need to add typecasting, because this will return the row object. So import this cast. Now we are converting that into row and then storing into row. So we got the first row into this variable. Now from this row, in this row we have a multiple cells. So to capture all the cells, we have to apply iterator for the cells also. So for that, what you can do is, take this row dot cell iterator. There is a method called cell iterator. So what this method will do is, in this particular row, this will iterate all the cells, or it will capture all the cells and store them into one variable. Let's say I'll name it as cell iterator. Just like a row iterator, we have a cell iterator. Let me just store this in a variable. I'll name it as cell iterator. And what's the type of this variable is? The type of the variable should be also iterator type. Okay, so here we apply iterator for the sheet. We got all the rows into this iterator type, and by using this iterator, we got the one row. Next method will get the row and store that into this variable. So from that row, by using cell iterator, we capture all the cells, and the return type will be the iterator. So by using this, we can read all the cells now. So now let me write one more while loop to read all the cells. So by using this cell iterator. So cell iterator dot has a next, again same method. So here from this iterator, I'm verifying the next data or record is there or not. If it is there, this condition becomes true and we are proceeding further. Similarly, once you get the cell iterator, there are multiple cells we have in that particular row. So which will check the cell is present or not. If the cell is present, then it will return true. Then we start reading the cell. So immediately what we have to do is, the condition is true, then we have to extract the cell from the cell iterator. So cell iterator dot the next method. So this particular method will return the cell, and where you have to store it, we have to store in some variable called cell, and the type of this variable is XSSF cell, and we need to do typecasting. So add cast XSF cell. Then we got the cell object here. So we got the cell object. So once you get the cell object, then we have to find out the type of the cell. Accordingly, we can read the data. So as usual, we use the switch case statement. Once you get the cell object, we can use switch case statement. So I'm just copying the same switch command, switch case block till here. And from here, it is exactly the same. So once you get the cell, get the type of the cell, accordingly, we use proper method. So after coming out of this, again, if you want to specify slash between each and every column, you can say system.out.print. Just give some slash. Okay, so I can just give one slash println. Okay, so over. So after coming out of this, it will go to the another row. So I'll write one sysout here and don't specify anything, and this is only just print, but here it is a println, so it is just for formatting purpose. So this is how we can use a iterator, which will also read the data from Excel. So let me repeat once again. So first we need to add the sheet into iterator, which will capture all the data into iterator, and checking this iterator is having the next record, then go inside and get the row. And again, in the row, there are multiple cells are there. So I'm adding the row to the iterator and get the cell iterator. And again, I'm checking the cells is present or not. If the cell is present or not, if it is yes, then it will come here, get the cell into this variable, the cell object. I'm just checking the cell object type, and accordingly, I'll read the data by passing get boolean cell value, numeric cell value, or string cell value methods. So this is how we can read the data from Excel by using iterator method. And now let us try to execute and we'll see how it is going to work. Right click, run as Java application. Yes. So now we can see we got all the data from Excel file. Right. So this is how we can use Apache POI API, which will read the data from Excel file. So we have to use 4 classes we have used. So what are the classes? XSS workbook, XSS sheet, XSS row, and XSS cell. So by using these classes and methods, we can read the data from Excel, and either we can use for loop method or we can use iterator approach. Okay, so that's all for this video, guys. In the next video, we will see few more concepts. Thanks for watching.